Hello and welcome back for episode 18. For the first order of business, I want everybody to follow me on Spotify and subscribe on iTunes. Did I say it correctly this time?
I think so.
Today, for a follow-up of our last episode on near-death experiences, we'll be talking about reincarnation,
It's more of
a series.
are we doing reincarnation or past life regression? Is it the
That's
same?
how we figure out reincarnations,
Yeah,
is
you're
through
right.
past
Sorry,
life
I'm slow.
regressions.
Okay, yeah. So it would be part two.
This will be part 2.
Yeah.
So today,
And you're doing how many parts?
3.
Okay.
Next week, we'll wrap it up with consciousness.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm down.
All right. Today, reincarnations. I'm going to focus on UVA. We spoke about that last time during the last episode about the Division of Perceptual Studies. Like I mentioned before on the last episode, they have over 50 years of experience or of research during past life studies, being near death experiences and as well as reincarnations. So, what I want to focus on today is again UVA, the Division of Perceptual Studies, Dr. Jim Tucker. He is the director of the Division of Perceptual Studies at UVA. Like I mentioned, they have over 50 years of experience with this and research, and starting back in the early 50s or the late 50s with Ian Stevenson. I think I mentioned this before in the last episode, but the way he got into this is Ian Stevenson got into the afterlife, near death experiences, and reincarnation is through another doctor at the campus of UVA. When he decided to do research on this back in the early 50s, he was actually funded by the creator of the Xerox system. Can you believe that? The inventor of the Xerox process.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, he funded the trip. So they started their trips off in India because in India they found a lot of cases of children that have spoke of past lives.
Yeah.
But it looks like a lot of these studies that they've done, you see a lot of it done on children. When the children start talking about past lives, I think they're about 10 years old, and these kids just spontaneously start to talk about a life that they had previously. So they remember things, remember places, remember names, remember people. So they do have an astounding amount of real information that they get out of these kids. And this is not doing regression. These are just kids that are coming out telling these stories. At first, a lot of the parents think that these kids are just telling stories. And how Dr. Tucker gets a hold of them, they actually contact them. And once they contact them, they do some back research on the past life of this child. But with these children, the time frame is usually 4 years from the time that this person has died to the time that this child is born. So there's some period of time. So it doesn't really happen like right away. A couple of cases that I have, and you know about these too,
Yep.
about the little boy that died. It was a pilot that died.
Yep.
So I have some notes on that, but I'll get to that. From the last episode, I do the same thing that when I listen to other podcasts or even radio shows that I do, you have tell stories and you miss stories because you go on to another subject. And what I was talking about during the last episode, not to skip back, was how they got the subjects for the studies in UVA. The first thing that I was talking about was if Mr. Jones or if a family member went down and had CPR, they went into cardiac arrest, they brought them back.
You have a good memory.
And so what happens is sometimes these people start to tell stories about what they saw. And these either stories get told to someone and contacts Dr. Tucker, or if it's a big enough story that gets into the news, UVA will go pick up that story and investigate it and do research on it.
Right.
So this is how they get these stories. And another thing I think I haphazardly explained last week was cardiac arrest and having a heart attack being two different things. Because people always think when you go into cardiac arrest, it's a heart attack, or if you have a heart attack, you're in cardiac arrest. That's two different things. What happens is of course, you have your circulatory system in your heart. What happens is blood goes through one side of your heart, it comes down, it goes to the main pumping vessel. I'm trying to say it in layman's terms so
Yeah.
but it goes to the right side of your heart, down up through some vessels to the left side. Blood goes down into the lungs to get oxygenated back into the left ventricle, which is the main pump of the heart, and it squeezes and pumps all the blood out to your body. That's what happens. Now, during a heart attack, what happens is you have a blockage in a main artery of your heart.
Right.
And if that artery is blocked off, it'll cause that tissue to lose oxygen, and at some point it will start to die. So time is always heart muscle. So when you have a heart attack, please go to the hospital. This causes damage to the heart. This is what causes a heart attack. This is called infarcting. So it's just causing the muscle around that area of the vessel to start to die. So that is a heart attack. But it can go into a cardiac arrest. So there's two things about cardiac arrest.
First, you should give a disclaimer.
What kind of disclaimer? A medical disclaimer that I don't do this, or
No,
I'm not
you do.
giving I'm not giving medical advice. What I'm doing is explaining, because
how
last
he
week
knows he's in the field. So
last week, so like I mentioned last week, I mentioned ventricular tachycardia. I half asked told the story, and all I said was ventricular tachycardia was a lethal rhythm. That's all I said. Remember?
Yep.
So I didn't explain anything.
Yeah.
But what happens in cardiac arrest, it can happen from having a heart attack or something causing your pump not to work right, which is your heart. Heart attacks can do that because once that muscle starts to die or gets damaged, it does create havoc in the electrical system of your heart. So
Right.
the pump is not pumping correctly. So with that, you can go into two rhythms. One is really not a rhythm. The first one, everybody knows, the flat line.
Sure.
That's asystole. You can't really do anything.
Sounds
you
like someone's name.
Yeah.
Or a place.
Asystole.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like a place. Maybe that's where because everything is always Greek, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's where they got it from.
Yeah.
What happens is you go into asystole. When you go into asystole, this is why we do CPR. The CPR is a manual pump for your heart, so you can keep the body oxygenated and the blood flowing throughout your body. And the second rhythm that happens, it could be ventricular tachycardia, just like I mentioned the last time, or ventricular fibrillation. Either one of those, the pump is still not working correctly. So you consider these cardiac arrests. So that's meaning that your heart is not pumping correctly. It's not working.
Right.
So we do CPR on that, and those two are lethal rhythms that could kill you, just like asystole, because your heart's not pumping. So during ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation, they have two things: is either they can convert you back to your regular rhythm and bring you back to life with medicines, or this is when they give you the paddles. So they shock you clear.
And you're familiar with that
Exactly.
personally.
And why I mentioned that, not only that it's haphazard, what I said last week, is because people do remember being shocked during cardiac arrest on some of these cases.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I wanted
That's
to
why
go over
you
that.
when that long story.
Well, it's
I
educational.
may have fallen asleep on.
But it is educational.
May or may have not have. I
But some
get it.
people out there don't know about it, though.
And they're very interested. You just probably educated a lot of people.
That's, like I mentioned, that's where Dr. Tucker gets his cases from. So the family member or the people themselves that are aware of the studies at UVA will contact them, and then they will do the studies. A lot of the cases, like I mentioned earlier, were kids, and you know some of the cases, and you said last week you watched these past regressions and things like that.
I watch them in the middle of the night when I can't sleep.
Well, I mean,
I just go I go in a rabbit hole, and then I start looking up names who were in there to try to find, to try to debunk the story myself. And you'd be surprised, I'm not the only one that does that.
Try to debunk them?
So for the case in the little boy.
Well, which one? You got to say names.
One of the shows that I was
story.
watching, it was on the BBC, but it was YouTubed. The boy mentioned his name, and so I started looking up his name. When I started typing in Google, several people have beat me to it. They want to find out too. And then there's blogs on this, like saying, I wonder if they ever find out this, or did they find this? And then other people chime in and say, oh, I had a neighbor that lived here in 1960, whatever the case may be. So there's people out there that also try to figure it out. Some people will say no, because his parents, he probably watched something on TV when he was smaller, or his parents, he listened to conversations. But the one that I'm speaking of in particular, the little boy grew up near the beach, and there was a plane. He named his dog, his parents, and he kept telling his mom, "You're not my real mom." And she was concerned about it. The guy from UVA, I'm pretty sure we're talking
Yeah.
about the same guy. He came to
Dr. Tucker.
visit. Yeah, like everything that he said, I had a family. They lived such and such. I mean, hundreds of miles away. There's nothing, no way that you would. There's no way that he could know this at his age, and he was under 5, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Like I said, most of these kids start like really young,
Yeah.
remembering these things.
They took him to the town. He started saying, "This is where I lived." And then, but when he started driving through, he was saying, "I don't remember that." He pointed out the houses, and they took him to a house that could have been his when he was smaller. And he was saying, "This wasn't there at my house. This was there." And they had changed everything around in the house because it obviously had been years prior.
So,
So uh, they they found a family and reached out that lived in the same neighborhood where that boy would have lived in the year. And I think they were called the Whiting family, if I'm not mistaken. And it was one lady left, and she showed pictures of the dog, but it didn't belong to the boy. It belonged to their family. And different things, it belonged to the neighbor, not him. But the lady was elderly, and she was the last surviving of,
so, but
and she remembers a family
But
that
what if,
lived there.
hold on. So we're talking about the little boy.
Yeah,
How
he
much of
died.
the information was correct that the little boy spoke of?
The family was correct. He named the family. It was the place that he named was correct, and they did have a plane that came in to drop off supplies because this is some like remote area. He described the house to a T. Those type of
Mm.
houses. Pretty much everything that he said was
Yeah, a lot of the cases that Dr. Tucker spotlighted, they were really accurate cases. And the one that we talked about the other day, the little girl from Sri Lanka,
yeah.
that one was really accurate.
That
Do you
one
remember
was
that
yeah.
story? So it's a girl, I don't have her name in my notes, but it's a girl in Sri Lanka that started having past life memories. The memories were so close and so accurate that when I'm going to tell the story, but when she met the family members, she actually went up and kissed the lady on her cheek
Yes,
and said,
as if
"That's you're my sister.
yep, that she knew her.
That's my sister." So we're going to take a pause for the cause,
Pause for the cause.
and then we'll come back.
We're debating.
Okay, welcome back from our short little break that we had. We have a guest in the house today. Do you want to introduce your sister?
This is a lady that needs no introduction.
Is that where we put the applause track
Yes.
like they do?
Yes.
Okay, we'll add
The
it.
talented, the amazing, my sister.
Your sister, is that it? Hi, sister. Do you want to introduce yourself?
You go ahead.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Cherie Johnson, and Lisa's one of her older sisters.
Yeah, she's the cooler one.
Yeah.
Okay, she came in knocked on the door while we're doing our recording.
I
So-
thought I left it unlocked. It wasn't her fault.
That's okay. We'll just pick up
Sorry.
where we left off.
My apologies.
So that's our rewind. Got it? So we're going to go
we
back
told them
to.
you were coming earlier.
Yeah,
Cool.
I know, but still, we're trying to get. I've been waiting for you all day to do this.
Sorry.
Anyway, back to the story. Before we took a pause for the cause, we were talking about a Sri Lankan girl
Yes.
that remembered a past life.
Yes.
The past life that she did remember that she was a man. She was a man, she had a family, and she sold, what was it, incense.
Incense.
And she remembered all that to the T. Dr. Tucker got a hold of this case because I believe this was like a news case, I think what it was.
It did make the news.
It made the news.
Yeah.
So when things like I mentioned earlier, things like that make the news, they go do research on it. The
Right.
Division of Perceptual Studies out of UVA.
Right.
So they went to India to follow up on this and do some research, and they found how close or how accurate the account was. She could account the day that she died in a car accident.
How.
In the car accident and how.
Yeah.
She even knew what he was carrying when he died.
Right.
Again, they sold incense and they were taking a separate truck or trolley or whatever they were in to a separate place from his brother.
Right.
When she did meet the family, she asked about those specific incense.
They made them.
They made them, but they didn't make them any longer.
Right.
So how would she know about them if they did not even make them anymore.
Right.
And she remembered everyone from the family.
The entire family
The
this
entire
girl
family.
knew.
She knew the town. She knew the brother that was with her. She knew how she died.
Yeah.
She knew her sister. What else can you say about that? I
I
mean,
mean, everything was so
was
accurate.
spot on.
Yeah, there was nothing that you could watch on TV for this little
No.
girl to know this. That's why it was probably interesting to
hmm
the guy from UVA.
Yeah, and so
So,
that's what they do. A lot of these cases, they, like I said, they find them in
yeah.
media or them, they contact them and they do research of these cases. Of course, every now and then they do get some bogus, cases, people that want some publicity, but they don't do anything with those at all.
Right.
But there's a lot of fascinating stories that they have. Another one is exceptionally accurate.
Wait, have you seen the show? So we watched the BBC. Okay, I YouTube BBC in the middle of the night a lot when I'm not sleeping and not texting you. They have shows of past life regression. They used to do those shows.
Like the paranormal shows
The
and things like
yeah,
that.
it was
but
like that. Have you
okay.
ever seen anything like that?
On the
Have you ever-
BBC, no, I
Okay.
haven't. But I do know what you're speaking of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so what about it?
I was just asking so she could follow along with the
so
conversation.
my question is: so
Oh.
you're the people that are studying these cases are from UVA? Are they like a paranormal research?
No, they are doctors.
They're doctors.
So in the last episode, if you didn't listen to the last episode, this is a group of doctors. I'm going to rewind for you guys just a little bit, but it's a group of physicians that is in medical department in UVA.
Okay.
So how they started this research is a doctor named Ian Stevenson. He was told a story about near-death experiences back in 1957. So he started to get interested into near-death experience and afterlife and all this.
Right.
So Dr. Stevenson was the one who founded this department in UVA. So it's not only just psychologists, philosophers, there are trauma surgeons, there are medical doctors, there are philosophers. So there's a group of different medical disciplines that's involved with this research.
Wow.
So there's neuro guys that's involved in this. So it's not a paranormal group at all. They don't
Okay.
search for anything paranormal.
Gotcha.
They just research the stories of after near-death experiences and afterlife. So this is what they do.
Okay.
So and the reason why I focused on them is because not only they're in Virginia, where we live,
Okay.
they have over 50 some odd years of research doing this
This is awesome. That's awesome.
right here in Virginia. So that's the main reason I focused on UVA is because of the amount of research that they have over the years. They have one interesting study that they did that I was going to wait till talk about, but you've already brought up the pre or past life regression, is they did a study with kids and they had kids make up a life. So they just had the kids just come in, make up their own past life. They didn't say it was a past life experience, but to make up something. So these kids would tell these stories. And what they would do is they took the names that the kids made up and put them in an international database to get hits, the names of the people that they gave to see if they're were real people.
Oh, wow.
So if they
Wow.
did get a hit or a real name, then they would take another step forwards to see if that person or see if
Oh,
that
wow.
person had this or whatever story that was made up by this kid to see how close it was. But what was fascinating about that was that they had some of these kids make up these stories and they told these stories or found out details to the T
Wow.
of these people.
Wow.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Can you believe that? And
Yeah.
these are just made up stories.
Are these people in India? Or are you talking about
No,
UVA?
it's
The-
UVA. These kids
I'm
aren't
asking,
gonna come
I don't
over here
know.
from
Listen, I
India
don't
to
know.
UVA to tell a story.
No, that's what I'm asking. I don't know.
No, they did. They
You
did it
said
here.
they. I
They
don't know.
I said UVA.
Did you?
Yes,
Yes,
I
you
did.
did.
So if you were paying attention, you would have heard that.
Sorry, slow.
So they told those stories. Isn't that crazy?
That is.
That's, yeah. I totally believe things like that happen.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, I have a couple of cases that I have notes on. One of the ones that you talked about before, not only the Sri Lankan girl, was the little boy that died in a plane crash that was a pilot.
Yeah.
Well, the little boy didn't die, but his past life, he was a pilot and died.
Right.
So this is another case out of UVA. This little boy's name was James Lineker. Well, is James Lineker because he is still alive. But what I have here is a side-by-side comparison of boy's story and the actual life of the person that he had past life experience,
That he was
or
previously.
it's just his that he was previously.
Right.
So the little boy was James Lineker. He signed his names on his drawings, James the Third. The guy who died, or the past life that he had, was his name was Jameson, and he was a junior.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So the little boy said he flew of the Natoma. Now, how could a kid make up a name like that?
Right.
The Natoma. What is the Natoma?
James Hudson, a pilot on the USS Natoma Bay.
Oh,
Okay. James Lineker, the little boy, flew a Corsair. James Hudson had flown a Corsair.
Wow.
oh my
The
God.
little boy, James, shot down by the Japanese.
Right. I remember. Okay, I remember this
The
story. I
James
do.
Hudson shot down by the Japanese.
Right.
Wow.
Little James died in Iwo Jima. James Hudson, he's the only pilot that died in Iwo Jima, the Iwo Jima operation.
Oh my Lord.
Right.
Little James, my airplane got shot in the engine and crashed in the water and sank, and I died.
That's right. I remember that story.
Wow.
Yeah.
The James Hudson, from eyewitness account, he was shot head on, center of the engine, and crashed.
Right.
Little James Lineker, nightmares of plane crashing, sinking into the water. James Hudson, plane crashed in the water and quickly sank.
Oh my Lord.
Little James, James Larson was there. James Hudson. Oh, sorry, I said James. I'm getting these J's mixed up. Jack Larson was there. That's little James. James Hudson. Jack Larson was the pilot next to him when he crashed.
Oh, wow.
So that's how accurate. But what I don't have on this note also, when he was a little boy, he mentioned that he saw his parents. He told his parents that he saw his parents on the beach in Hawaii.
Wow.
That's when they were trying to conceive him.
That's right. Right.
Can you
Wow.
believe that?
Yeah.
How can a kid with names like that, 3 or 4 years old, make up a story or
Right.
names like that just out of the blue?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't. I don't. You can't do it. Even if you saw this somewhere as a little kid, I'm not going to remember those names.
No.
Yeah.
Especially the
accuracy of it
USS
all.
Natoma,
Right.
Iwo Jima. So
Yeah.
what happened here? So to go backwards with the story, the little boy, he would take his plane and he would crash it onto the coffee table. They even have pictures of the coffee table online.
Right.
So he would crash it onto the coffee table, plane go down, crash, plane go down, crash. And he was telling his family, his parents about, he died in a plane accident. And he was always interested in, Iwo Jima. World War II was World War II.
Right.
He was always interested in that. He got a book from his grandfather of World War II, started flipping through it and said, that's me. That's where I was. He picked
Wow.
himself out of the book.
Isn't that crazy?
That is.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
You got to watch it. It's you. You can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's
Listen
you
to this.
can you can watch it. You can go to the UVA website. They have all this information on the UVA website. So again, how can you make up stories like that?
Right.
It's hard to. And just sitting here listening to this, and I've talked to you all about my things offline, and having my own past life memories and things that I remember so vividly, like I was there, like I was watching from above, like, picking out my own mother and things like that. It's there, and how I had conversations and was able to describe people that had passed years before.
One thing that they do mention is the above, how people see from above.
Yes, you're always floating.
Yeah, always.
So in my experiences is always flying and floating above and watching down different scenarios of, I've been told it's like there's no way I'm able to know these things that have happened with different family members, that in households and places where I wasn't even born, I wasn't even conceived yet, but I'm able to tell you who was in the room, where they were standing, what they were wearing, what the weather was or the light was outside, tell you conversations that I have no way of knowing about the conversations. And I was telling stories from the time that, I could start talking or walking, of different things and people and events in the family that I keep being told there's no way I could know this.
And they mentioned that most of the time kids start to tell these accounts at the age of 10 or under.
Yeah, I think I
So
was
the average age they said here in the notes about 6 or 7 years old. But that little boy I just spoke of, James Linegar, was only 3 years old when he started his.
I was like 2 or 3 when I started mine. The very first one, and I'm not going to not going to go too long, take you out of what your story that you were telling, but one of the most vivid ones was I had to be about 2. I was at my grandmother's house in Dunloring. My grandmother was in the kitchen, along with 3 of her sisters, and they were sitting around the table. Grandma was cooking. I had to go to the bathroom, and so the way their house was set up, the first level was a huge kitchen, and then you had a door that you went into that was like a sliding pocket door, and you walked into this huge room that they called the parlor. Um, Upstairs there were
That's
7.
old school.
Yes, a second. They had a small, narrow room off to the side and near a stairwell going up. And then upstairs, the stairwell kind of went up and wrapped around. And there was a huge bedroom when you first come up. And then the hallway went to the left. And there was like multiple bedrooms and a bathroom up there. And then this big, huge opening at the end that was almost like another room unto itself with a big window that looked outside. And to the left was another large bedroom where my uncles all shared a room. But anyway, this day I walked out of the kitchen to go to my aunt's, to that little room, to go to the bathroom, go in that direction, and there was this like bluish turquoise colored chair that had like this kind of popcorn like effect to the
So
fabric.
was this part of your remembering, or was this
This is actual. This is
Okay.
actual. And so when I walked in the room, there was a man sitting there who I remember seeing multiple times. And when I was floating above the house, I remember seeing my grandfather bring this man out on the porch and sit and other people come up and talking to him, and the old man walking with the cane. And it was the same man sitting in the chair, and he was rubbing his knees. And I went over to him and I said, "What's wrong?" And he said his knees hurt. He said his legs hurt. He told me to go tell them gals to come in here and change my bandages. And I was like, "Your legs hurt, bandages," kind of questioning what's wrong and can I see
gals
it?
with your mom or your sisters?
No, talking about my grandmother and
Oh.
his daughters, because there was 4 of them in the kitchen.
Hmm.
He said, "You want to see?" He asked me, did I want to see? And so he pulled his pants legs up, took the bandages off, and showed me his legs, and they were infected. I looked at his legs, and I'm seeing these worms all over, and they were maggots, and freaked me out. And the smell was just horrible. And he told me again, he said, "You tell them gals," I said, "it's time to change my bandages. Go get them." So I go in the kitchen and I would say, "Grandma, Daddy said, tell them gals it's time to change my bandages." So I repeated exactly what he said.
So that was your grandfather, or
No, great grandfather who had died 2 years before I was born.
okay? Okay. So because I'm confused. So because you said this one, what you're telling now is the regression.
Right. So this
Okay.
is where, so I'll get to that in a second. So long story short, my grandmother and her sisters all looked at each other, asked me to repeat what I said, and asked me to show them where this man was. And who was I talking about? And I repeated what he said. And she took me by the hand and I led her into the room and I said, "There he is." And I pointed to the chair. And I told her, I said, "His legs hurt." And she's like, "Where?" I said, "Right there. He's right there." And I described him. And so she just looked pale and grabbed me and went back in the kitchen and slammed the door. And we didn't go back in there for the rest of the day. And I don't remember where I ended up and falling asleep when I woke up next. I was at my mom's. The memory for me is this man died 2 years before I was born.
Okay.
Prior to me seeing him sitting in the chair that day, I had memories of talking to him, of being in the room with him and my grandfather and my aunts and other people in the different parts of the house, out on the what do you call it, the porch. But my memories are always of me floating around.
So it's not a memory that you can put a name to or a person
You
to.
think maybe it
No, I
was
know his name.
No,
but
no,
No,
you.
you.
Me.
meaning were
Because
you somebody's child? Were you one of grandma's kids?
I don't know if I was anyone's child. All I know is seemed like I went from body to body.
Ah,
But for the most part, I would be floating above and watching different scenarios. And I also remember floating down and sitting on his lap and being told not to sit on his lap. But it was me, but it wasn't me.
right.
You know what I'm
okay,
saying?
yeah. So that's this
That's
like regression, or just like when people do have past life experiences, but I guess these are more notable cases because they have actual names that
Right.
they can put to
Right.
the person. They can
Mhm.
say, look at a picture, that was me.
Right.
They remember all of that stuff.
People, when she shares these stories, people are saying, well, how would you know you're not even born? We have a one sister that always says that you weren't even born. How would you know? But the thing is, if you know our family, we don't talk about family stuff. We have dining room table talk or kitchen table talk, as it were, but it's not like that, like so
And you
vivid.
can't discredit
You
everybody's
can't
experience.
discredit anybody's experience. Exactly. So that's always, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
where would you have gotten that from?
Exactly.
Because even throughout kitchen table talk, that wouldn't have so specific wouldn't have
Yeah,
been
and this
told.
stuff goes back, just like everything that we talk about goes back years and years
Right.
to the beginning of
Yeah.
time.
Right.
I have some interesting
And she
quotes.
always says that she always has memories from when she was like 2 or 3.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like, and those, the dreams that I had that were also of things that were always the same, but it was like a movie adding on, adding on, adding on.
Yeah.
But that started in childhood that went forward, and in my dreams and in also waking visions, having memories and experiences of different houses and what they look like inside and outside, and being in these different rooms and actually time traveling within the same house, like going from one door to the next. And I would always see a lady that looked like Aunt Dottie.
Right.
And the clothing would change. It went from like early 1800s clothing into early 1900s into the 20s. But I was always, whoever I was always recognized and talking to one of the other relatives. But
Right.
it was like I was time traveling
And
within these,
and
you
that's
know.
what, that's a lot of these accounts also was people to related it to being a movie,
Yeah,
that they're actually sitting back watching a movie as the time is going on with this.
exactly. Exactly.
And like I said, this has been since the beginning of time that people believed in near death experiences and reincarnation. It's not new. I have some interesting quotes. Plato was big into the afterlife.
Was he really?
Yes,
Yes. Yes.
he
Oh.
was. And
Okay.
because like I did last
I
time,
like how you said that. Plato.
Me
Plato.
too.
Just like I did last time, I watched hours and hours of different lectures on the subject.
Right.
And one of the quotes from Plato,
Plato.
from
I
Plato,
messed you up.
the body is prison for your soul. He also mentioned the reason why we don't remember. Of course, this was back in his day. People that do remember didn't drink enough the waters of memory, or
Lake
what's it?
Minnetonka.
Didn't drink enough. Oh, didn't drink enough of the. Did
Sorry.
not drink enough of the water of forgetfulness. That's why they have these past life experiences or remember past life. This is what he.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's I like I said, I looked at, I watched different lectures. There's a couple of other people that that had like interesting quotes. There was a gentleman by the name of H.H. Price. H.H. Price was a Welsh philosopher, so he's known for perceptual philosophy and studies and things like that too. So I'll post his information in the notes as well. He mentioned a disembodied person would always think of themselves as a former person. The reason why he mentioned that is I was watching one of the lectures on how people don't believe in reincarnation or don't believe in an afterlife. If you don't have a soul or you went on to somewhere else as your consciousness, then you would always be thinking of yourself in your human form. So that's why when they were talking about is like how some people can remember and some people don't remember.
Right.
Because if you're just floating around, you're going to want to, just like, the alien movies, you're going to want to find a body to get into because you remember yourself as, as a person of the past or your past.
Right.
And you said you always, before I go into telling any other stories or any accounts of what I have in my notes here, your soul. I've heard in some of the lectures that people think that we're part of just one collective, that we think we have a separate mind and consciousness, that we're just part of an entire collective, what we could be, because all made of everything from the universe.
Energy, dust.
Yes.
Energy, yeah.
Electricity.
We're all made of the same substance of the universe. So we could be part of, a big collective. And with something that you did mention that we talked about before, but we didn't talk about it in the show was that how people pick their life,
Mhm.
Their souls.
their souls.
She touched
No,
on that
well,
too.
not you can't pick your soul because you only
I'm
have one.
sorry. Your soul makes an agreement.
There you go.
Right.
So what I heard on one of the lectures, whatever you choose in your life does not affect your soul.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could be like an evil person, just like Hitler, chopping people up. You could be, you could be
make
anybody.
a deal. You choose you can choose to be your
But
brother again. You can choose to be
but how would you
your
know
mother.
that though? I mean, because if
Your soul knows.
your soul, but if I saw this, do you think I would want to come back like Charles Manson or something?
You don't know. You have a life's purpose, and each life has a purpose.
Right.
So
And whatever your energy is drawn to is what you're going to probably continue to be drawn to. So, and I say, yeah, did you hear that part? So, all right. So, this is what I'm going to say because of the things that I've been through. Like when I got knocked off the slide, and I literally jumped out of my body. I
Right.
don't know if I've ever told you that story.
Mm-mm.
So I think I was in first grade kindergarten, and some friends pushed me off the top of an 8-foot slide onto the asphalt, and I landed head first. I literally watched my body laying on the ground, and our
brother.
and our sister, our brother and our sister crossed my arms, picked me up, and carried me down to our aunt's home and laid me on the sidewalk. And I was trying to catch up, and it was like I couldn't run. I had to fly. I got down there, and all the kids are surrounding, and our sister went in to go get my aunt, and something told me, get back in your body. Get back in your body. So I laid back in my body.
See, you should have been here last week with that story.
Right.
What?
NDE,
Why?
near-death experience.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
see, you're a week too late.
I know. So, but with the thing of me saying that basically there's times where I've been known to like astral plane and that kind of thing. And something that's totally off topic.
You said that because I actually have a person that I have in my notes that's
Okay,
all
let's
about
let
that.
her finish. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So the whole thing of picking your life's purpose or picking your path, I honestly believe because of memories that I have of picking my mother, seeing her with family outside of the back of my great grandmother's home, watching them from above and looking at this family and thinking, oh my gosh, I really they looked like they were fun. And it seemed like I was just floating. And I was like this thing of energy, and I'm bouncing around and floating around them. And I literally remember picking my mother to be my mom. There was something about her that I really liked.
Right.
You mentioned that's off topic about that,
Mhm.
the astral planing. I have in my notes that a guy by the name of Edgar Casey. He's Virginia too. Man, we got a lot of people that's
It's
into some
only in
things
Virginia.
I mean, he worked out as one of the hospitals in Virginia. He was considered an American clairvoyant. He did healing, incarnation, dream, afterlife, past life, nutrition, spoke of Atlantis and astral plane. So he claimed to be, psychic. Well, I don't want to say claimed, but he claimed, or
Well, that's what it
he's a psychic, a clairvoyant. So he had a bunch of different hats. But there's a hospital called the Casey Hospital in Virginia Beach.
Oh.
So he actually worked with physicians on this back in the early 1920s.
Wow.
So Virginia Beach period for him was 1925 to 1945.
Kind of like the Mineral Water Hospital,
I don't know what that
Water
is.
Hospital. Never heard of
the
that.
spa.
Oh, you talking about that TV show, that movie?
No, one of the adventurers went there. They did a.
Oh
they-
yeah,
y-
we can't rehash
Sorry.
another show that
Sorry.
because we talked about that during
Did you
ghost
see it?
shows.
No.
Yeah, there was a whole. We'll talk about it offline, but yeah,
Yeah,
there was a whole.
you have to
Well,
rewind.
But to your point, Casey claimed he was this thing, and then the same thing with
Well,
the
you can't
mineral
say
water.
claimed.
Why? Why can't I? That's what he claimed to be.
Well, yeah, I guess he claimed to be it, but
Was he an
you don't
MD?
want to debunk what
Is MD behind his name?
It's not behind his name, but it was behind the people that researched with him.
Okay, so he claimed. I'm just saying.
Anywho, but that's wild.
He's a professional in his field.
This is in Virginia too. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of stuff that's going on in Virginia that I didn't know about until I started researching this stuff.
Something in the water.
In the water in Virginia Beach. And we go to Virginia Beach all the damn time too.
We do.
Maybe that's what's wrong with you. Anyway,
Nice.
back to the
I thought it
story.
was the well water from Dunmore.
Yeah.
Since we'll go back, since we're bouncing around like we do all the time, but I'll go back to one other story that I had about a little boy. This little boy is named Ryan Hammond. He had the similar experience to the little boy James that I explained, Lindiger, that I talked about earlier.
Right.
He woke up, and I think you know about this too, said, "You're not my mom," to his mother.
Right.
And he kept repeating it, that you're not my mother.
Was that the little boy that was on Oprah?
He may have been on Oprah, but I didn't watch any
Oh,
of.
okay. Because that
any of
happens a
Oprah.
lot with the regression.
But yeah, he said that he wasn't his mom and that's not his dad. And he wanted to go back to Hollywood.
Mm.
So he
Mhm.
kept repeating this as a little boy. It's like, you've never been to Hollywood. Why would you want to go back to Hollywood? Did you watch it on TV or something like that? The mother contacted, UVA, the Department of Perceptual Division of Perceptual, whatever, UVA.
Mm, blah, blah, blah.
Dr. Tucker took the case and started doing research on this. The little boy gave a name, which was a guy by the name of Marty Martin.
Wow.
Mo Marty Ma.
They couldn't find him. They'd stopped right there.
Right.
So did some more digging because he gave specific places and names.
Mhm.
So they showed him a picture of like an old movie or something like that. And this was just doing a research. He goes, "Oh, that's me there." They go, "Wait a minute." Okay, so they took it to someone at the studio
Yeah.
who figured out who this guy was.
Wow.
So this guy he said, "No, sorry." He didn't say that's me. He said, "I used to work with him."
Oh, wow.
This is what he said. "I used to work with him on the movie." So they went back and like, who'd work with him? So they kind of put the details together. And what was is one of the main actors, I don't have his name down, but this guy, Marty, was an extra in this movie because he named the movie and named the other actor.
Wow.
So they did research. They found this guy named Marty Martin. They pulled up a picture to him. This is when he saw the picture and said, "Yeah, that's me." And the reason why they couldn't find him because he wasn't successful as a Hollywood actor,
Right.
but he became a dancer. He used to dance across the country in like different shows and things like
Broadway?
that. Broadway too, and he
Yeah.
changed his name several times.
Oh, wow.
So that's
Reinventing
why-
himself.
So that's why they couldn't find him at first. He spoke of the dancing that he did on Broadway. Also spoke of, I used to work with other actors. And this guy, Marty Martin, opened up a successful agency
Oh, wow.
for actors.
Wow.
And again, back to what we talked about earlier, how can you just pull that out of your ass to say, I was in a movie with XYZ in Hollywood? What kid watches movies from the 30s?
Right.
No kids watch that. And where would you ever see that?
Right.
You wouldn't see it.
Kids do watch it.
You heard that pause.
No, you used to watch musicals and stuff. We've all watched old school stuff, but not that specific. I get your point.
Yeah,
I was
okay.
just saying that.
Okay, I used to live on, I remember that's me in that movie. I lived on XYZ Street and all that,
Sure,
right?
no, I
Yeah,
get it.
don't
I was
think
just
so.
correcting you as far as watching TV. And old
No,
movies.
if kids are watching from a movie from the 30s, they're sitting there with their grandparents.
The
watching that movie.
grandparents, that's
And
right.
How many
My
times?
grandkids will do that.
How many
Right.
times have you paid attention to a movie that your grandparents were watching?
Will
I
we
did.
end up doing it?
Yeah,
You,
I did.
You kind of help it. Just like my brother used to make me watch MASH. I hated it
Oh,
until I
MASH
started
was
Mash was
liking it.
good.
MASH was awesome.
Yeah, that was
Well,
good.
after a
You know-
certain age, but me at like 5,
Wait a minute.
MASH was not cracking.
What about
Mm.
Benny Hill?
And well, I like Benny Hill. I never got the comedy, but it was fun. I never understood the comedy.
Oh, gosh.
But
Locano
this-
used to say that's European comedy, so it wouldn't be the same. They have different humor.
He said
Okay.
it was dry humor.
Oh,
That's for
sorry,
another,
rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
that's for
rabbit
another
hole.
show.
Sorry.
But this little boy, Ryan Hammond, was born in 2005, and usually they said the time frame is about 4 years that they've noticed on these kids to be reincarnated.
Right.
He was born in 2005. Marty Martin was born in 1903 and died in 1964. So that was a huge time frame in
Yeah.
between. And
Yeah.
I wonder if he had another life.
Maybe that's
He was just floating around
Yeah.
he might have.
in the heavens.
Yeah.
But what's interesting that they found,
Everything is interesting.
It
to
is.
you.
I mean, but you tell me these subjects aren't interesting.
They
Should I
are.
say? Give me another word instead of say fascinating,
There you go.
astounding,
Yes.
extraordinary. But what's so extraordinary about this is, but there are kids that were born with deformities. For instance, they had some past life memory of being killed because their kids are afraid of guns or afraid of water or just
Fire.
something fire or something specific.
Mine's water.
It's because they may have been shot, drowned, or what have you. But there was a little boy that was shot in his head, and well, sorry, the little boy wasn't shot. The person who died that he remembered was shot in the head. He was born with no ear,
Mm.
Wow.
a deformity. There was another little kid that was born with his fingers chopped off, and the memories he had was from some pool or something that chopped off his fingers. There's even been birthmarks of kids that remember, I got this when I was stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
well, when were you stabbed? Yeah, I got this when I was stabbed. And there was somebody of the more recent years that he was held up with his brothers, and I can't remember which country it was. His sisters were raped. The brother went after the guys who raped the sister, killed them. So the police came after him. So him and his brothers were held up in a house. Instead of being arrested because they know in that country that they weren't going to arrest them, they were probably going to execute them.
Right.
Right.
So he did a murder suicide. So he killed his brothers and killed himself.
Oh wow.
So there was a child that was born that remembers this that happened.
Oh my gosh.
So the gentleman that did the research on this, he has a birthmark here.
Oh wow.
And he go, well, if it's a birthmark, then it should be too, because all his life he goes, I was shot here underneath the chin. So when this doctor did the research, he goes, well, if there's an entrance wound, there should have been an exit wound. So they went in his hair. He had the same birthmark. They got police report, the guy who committed suicide,
Yeah.
and did a line from the bottom of his chin. He put the gun up to the exit wound on top of his head. And then they measured it, the angle and everything, and then went back to the boy and measured it the same way. It
Oh,
was
wow.
exact.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
How I can't understand how could that happen physically. What they did mention in one of the lectures is just the strong power of the memory causing that in utero before you were born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you remember that you have no hands, it's been cut off or you've been shot.
Mhm.
So it manifests when you're born into your next life.
Right.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
That is nuts. That's crazy.
I mean, it's
Hmm.
We're all part of the collective.
It makes me wonder now if when my son kept saying that he was that I wasn't his mother and that
nah, he just didn't want you as his mama. That's all.
right,
Hey.
wait a minute, but no, we're in a restaurant and we're sitting there and this group of people come in and they're sitting on the other side of the restaurant from us. It was a large group and he got up from our table and went to an empty table and sat there looking at them for the longest time and he was mad. He got madder and madder and madder. So when we were leaving, my husband and daughter went out the door and I stood there, stayed to pay because I was treating that day and he stayed with me and one of them was an older gentleman and a younger guy from the group. They had never been really served.
Right.
And so the guy was at the counter. My son's standing there looking at him with his arms crossed and he's mad. And the guy turns around and looks at him and says, hey, little fella. And he's just puffing and puffing. And he's like, what's wrong with you? And he goes, my son looks at him and he goes, what are you doing here? And the man said, I came to eat. He's like, no, why are you here? The man's like, well, I have to eat like you. And my son says, no, you're supposed to be out there doing my father's work.
Oh.
And the guy
Bossy.
looks at me all weird. And I'm like, he goes, well, who are you here with, little man? Where's your mommy and daddy? And he goes, I don't have a mommy. And I'm standing right there.
Right.
And the man looks at me and I'm like, I'm his mother. And he goes, no, she's the lady that takes care of me. He's like, well, where's your father? And he goes, my father and brother live in heaven. I'm just here to do a job. And you're supposed to be out there doing my father's work. Now, mind you, I wasn't taking my kid to church and I wasn't reading the Bible.
Right.
I would have told him if you don't get your ass in that car, you're going to meet the rest of your family in heaven.
Right. So I'm just like freaking out. Well, and he would say things like that to people
Right.
all the time. So I used to be like, okay, what's going on with this kid? Is there someplace I can take him to find out what's going on with him? Maybe if I found these doctors, they could have checked
Yeah.
him out
Yeah.
and found out why he was saying crazy stuff
I mean,
like
you
that.
can email them. I
Yeah.
always post the information and
I'm telling
they'll
you.
take it. They'll take a look at it. And if they find any validity to it, they research it.
Yeah. I
That'd
say,
be
Um,
kind of cool.
yeah, but
yeah.
he wouldn't go for
Oh
it.
yeah, I know you would.
But now you we're talking all week that you watch this in your sleep. So you have any of the stories? I'm the only one telling stories. And you said you already knew about this stuff.
Well, yeah, I did, but you didn't give me a chance to talk.
Well, you have plenty of time to talk besides all the multiple interruptions.
Sorry.
You talking about disclaimer that I said earlier for everybody that's
I
listening
said
today,
sorry.
episode, there is a lot of shite that's going on in this house today.
Shite.
A lot of stuff.
You got a
So
lot of
some of
shite.
it I may be able to edit out and some of it I may not. So, but I apologize in advance. And what's your story?
What's my story?
Yeah, tell us about what you know about the reincarnation and the past life regressions.
Well, I just know that you've already said it about
I said it all.
you said it all.
Howard Stern, if y'all don't know, the king of all media.
Radio God.
Yeah.
No, yeah, your energy, you choose the body that you want to go to. And
Okay.
you choose who you
Great
want.
story.
No, but so some people like what I've read on the blog. Again, the videos take me down a rabbit hole because I'm going to research everything. It's in my nature for my job. I had to fact check
Well, how about you
everything.
stick to this topic at this
So I
moment?
am. So this going into aggression, some people are saying that if nothing else, the takeaway is there's this one lady, and Oprah did a story about her.
Yeah, Oprah's, yeah, of
Ann
course, on her
Barham.
old
Of
show.
course, Oprah did it. She's the one that introduced us to Esther Hicks. If you guys don't know, look it
Yeah,
up. Esther and Abraham
with
Hicks.
with Oprah, I mean, a lot of the stuff got out into the media that way because, and the reason
Well,
why
we
is
wouldn't
because
know otherwise.
there was no internet like we have now. You couldn't
Sure.
just search everything on Google, and there were books out about reincarnation and people in past lives and afterlife and things like that. And she's had several people that wrote these books or these accounts.
And one that you could probably follow that Dr. Oz was on was Dr. Weiss, and I'm sure you're going to mention him, right?
Probably not on this one. I had him somewhere. Because like I said, I watched a bunch of lectures, and
YouTube him.
I just can't keep going through different names and names of people without saying what they do.
Sure.
So and that's why I stuck to my man, Dr. Tucker, because
You might as well do your own
he's
documentary
Virginia.
on this guy.
But
Sheesh. Well,
I
can I
did.
go back to my
Yes.
story?
Can you tell the story then?
You didn't let
Okay.
me.
You two are so funny.
Sheesh. She writes a book, Ann Barham. She was featured in Oprah magazine. The author was. The author is Michelle Darasaw. And she did the past life regression. If ever you guys are interested, let me just say this. YouTube people, how they tried past life regression, this is what happened. And most people that have tried it, they came out with a different perspective of life just in general. So this lady, the author of the article, she was taken through several past lives, including her mother. She went to, her mom was like a author, a storyteller. She went through different lives. She was under hypnosis, of course, because that's what you do when you do past life
Yes.
regression. This lady's with her throughout the whole, well, she's the one who did the therapy. But her takeaway is that she felt like she was healed and that she can go back to.
Yeah, and that's when I watched these past life regressions, and this is what I got out of. I watched a few of them because I was more into the reincarnation. Because reincarnating, or the topic of reincarnation, was more of studies of research,
Right.
not the past life regressions.
Sure.
If you're finished, I want to go to another part of the past life regression.
So I have two things. So with her particular article, she was saying that when people come out of hypnosis, they always think that it's guilt, like they made it up. And she was saying even it was your experience. So if you've healed from it, I'm telling you the ghetto version of it, seriously.
Yeah,
But
I
you
know
should.
because my takeaway from it was more like therapy.
Well, yeah, because she's a therapist,
Okay.
and that's what she was saying. She says that it takes the pressure off when you are saying to people, take from it just that you've been healed, especially if you've gone down you've went to a past life and it was a painful memory, and then she takes you to another life. So you had a discovery on why something traumatic happened, and you're fearing water. You don't swim this life, right? And then
Right.
you go to another memory and you remember your small studio apartment in New York City, and you remember happy times in that New York City apartment, and you remember that feeling. So, and then you come out of that regression, and that's what you left with. Like you have those memories, and you go, oh, okay, this is why I'm scared of this. I'm good. And this also, I remember New York, and I remember that smell. Let me take a vacation there, even though I live in Oklahoma. I made that up, but that's
Well,
my
the
point.
the
And it's a relationship builder. The lady in the article, she now has a relationship with her dad. She went through 5 lifetimes under in her subconscious with this lady. So check her
well
out. Ann Barham is the lady that it's called
now the criticism
Lifetime.
that psychiatrists or psychologists that does these regressions
Hold on. The
get
past life perspective. Discovering your true
okay.
nature across multiple lifetimes. Ann Barham. Okay.
Okay. We'll get some stuff together and post. These psychologists are scrutinized quite a bit because of word hypnotized.
Sure.
The power of suggestion is very strong.
Yes, it is.
And if people that can believe,
You can achieve. I'm
people
sorry.
that want to be and believe will be hypnotized.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
So
we saw that in
people come up
person.
with these stories, but there is a word that I hope I say it right, but even the definition I have to read correctly.
Okay.
Cryptomnesia.
Cryptomnesia.
Okay.
Cryptomnesia occurs when a forgotten memory returns without its being recognized as such by the subject who believe it is something new and original. Meaning that you could have seen that story from somewhere. There was an example that they went over. It was a professor. Remember when the Challenger blew up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He did this purposely for this study. He took these kids that was in this one particular class, had them write down where were they and what they were doing when the Challenger blew up. Many years later, he contacted them. Of course, they graduated. He contacted them and had them write the story again
Mm-hmm.
about the Challenger blowing up. The one in particular that he mentioned was that one boy said, yeah, I didn't even know it blew up. One of my friends told me because, I was at work because, we didn't have the internet back then. So this is what he wrote. Forward, pulled his story. He remembers exactly where he was. He remembers what he had on and remembers when it blew up and when or the people that was around him when it blew up. He was at home by him. So the two different stories differ because it comes from you watching stuff over a period of time
Right.
that becomes implanted into your memory.
Sure,
Right.
but also, how do you think that investigators get their stories? Because
What do you mean investigators get their
if
stories?
for a crime or for a crime that's committed, and they ask someone, they reinvest, what do you call it? They keep questioning, so they'll go, and
Yeah.
then they'll go back months
But
later
people
or
are
years
coerced
later.
into giving confessions that way, right?
No,
Right.
but do you see my point? Like, especially a kid, they go, we know we saw something. We know the kid saw something. She was the only witness. So they ask her, oh, I didn't see anything. I only saw that. And then during conversation or them playing, they'll say the memory. They'll say what they remembered.
Do
It's
you know an
similar.
eyewitness is the worst
I'm
anything
just
to
telling you what
use in court
investigators
or
to do.
anything?
That's your opinion.
Right.
No, it's not an opinion.
It's definitely an opinion.
It is not
It's
because they've
definitely
done a lot of
opinion.
studies on that. Because you
It's
can,
not fact.
it's if people they've done studies. If people had an accident, they'll say what color car it was.
Couldn't remember.
They couldn't remember the
I
color of
couldn't
the car.
remember until after.
But they go to court. They know what color the car
Sure,
is
that's
because
what I'm
somebody
saying.
told them or
No,
they saw
that's
it
not
somewhere
true.
else.
Wait, I'm gonna
That's
chime in
not
on this
true.
one. I'm gonna chime in on this one because I saw an accident, 2 cars. One that was in front of me at the light. We pull out of the light and you have to slow to merge onto the road.
Right.
Well, the car in front of me, I let him go. I stayed behind him like 3 cars lengths and I could barely see his tag. But as we were going through the light, it started clearing up just a little bit. There was another car. You could see it coming. The car in front of me slowed down because the one coming from the right looked like it wasn't going to stop. And then he continued and they rammed into him.
Oh, wow.
I remembered what the guy looked like in the car in front of me. And I remembered that there were, because there was only one person in that car, Caucasian male. The car that was coming from the right that hit him had 3 people in it, 2 guys and 1 girl. And the person that got out of the driver's side was a guy. I remember dark-haired, toned people. For some reason, they end up going down the street a little bit more. And the car that hit him kept trying to go, and he tried to catch up with them and finally pulled in front of them and made them stop. I called the police. Police come, and I gave my statement. In that split second, I forgot which color the car was that was in front of me and the color of the car that hit, but I was able to tell him who was who.
Right.
Yeah, see, things that
But by the time I got to
eyewitnesses
court,
are.
I gave him the correct description of the drivers and who was in which vehicle. I just
Right.
couldn't remember which vehicle was which, because by the time they pulled over, the car that was the one that was in front, and the car that hit him was behind him. So I got those vehicles mixed up, but I had the people right.
Right.
The guy that got hit got charged with it, and I went to court. The officer wants to and talk to me outside of it, and I was like, no, like I told you at the scene, the blonde-haired guy was in front of me. The three people on the right hit him. I said, and not only that, they called me. How they got my phone number, I don't know, but they called me asking me to say that the guy hit them,
Right.
and that they would
Probably
pay
from
me,
the statement.
Right. Yeah.
and they would pay me. And I'm like, no, I'm not paying. No, I'm not doing that.
Right.
So he didn't want me to come in and testify, and told me to
Wow.
and dismissed me.
Yeah,
Wow.
because you can't. A lot of times you
But-
can't trust eyewitnesses.
So here's the thing. Do you know how when you forget a name of something, but you know it, you know that
Yeah.
you know that your brain is already trying to figure it out the entire day.
So
So you go your whole day, and then out of the blue you go, oh
Yeah,
my God,
that's-
Johnson.
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. But back to
It's the same
past life
thing.
regression. It's that person that, again, like I mentioned, they're under scrutiny for doing this is because you hypnotize someone, somebody that you have under. You can give suggestions to them
True. It's very true.
to say, yeah, this is what I remember this, and I remember that, and I remember this. So you implant that memory into it to that person like it's their memory, but it's not.
How
So
do you
that's-
explain it for the people that's been recorded?
Jimmy,
Like Dr. Weiss records his. Dr. Oscott
how about this?
was
We
under
spoke
it.
about this. We spoke about this earlier. Do you remember? Or yesterday, Dan Brown. He can be in your face, talking to you normally.
I'm talking
But
about on the
by,
TV.
by being, he's on TV, but being a mentalist, he implants these seeds into your brain to make you think or say something that he
I'm-
wants to.
So
No, I
basically
get it.
Basically setting seeds
scenario.
for
Sure.
false for basically for false
I'm not saying
memories.
that
Yeah,
doesn't happen.
exactly.
I'm not saying that doesn't
Exactly.
It
happen.
can
But
happen.
how do you explain it when you see someone like Dr. Weiss on TV?
Just like I just mentioned, Dan Brown did it in front of everybody's face, recorded, and you
So
still
I'm
couldn't
watching
understand
on
it.
TV. What?
You could not
How am I-
understand
but I'm
how
not
he did
hypnotized
it.
on watching it.
Well, he's not even hypnotizing you. He's just
Yeah,
using
he has the power of persuasion.
exactly,
I
and
get
you
it.
don't know he's doing it because
I'm
you're
asking
doing a
you
regular
if
conversation.
you're asking. Have you seen a past life regression
I
therapy? Have you seen
Because
it
he's
go
the
through
one
whole
with the
process?
glasses and the
The silver hair.
silver hair. Yeah, I've seen
salt and
his.
pepper.
Because I watched a couple of his
Right.
things also.
So,
But I mean, I'm
everybody
not.
that's-
I'm just giving. You can't. You have to give two sides of a story.
No, I get
So,
it.
and that's where I'm going to the
You're
how
playing
this
devil's
devil's
advocate.
advocate, the science of it, looking at it at that perspective of it. Because just like we mentioned before in past life regression, if there's not true, tangible scientific data
Yeah.
that real scientists get as fact, a lot of this is all anecdotal data. So it's only going by word of mouth.
Sure.
That's it.
Right.
So you cannot calculate anything to come up a solution at all. I mean, with at UVA, by now I think they've done over 2,700 cases of near-death experiences.
Right.
Over the past 50 years. It's a lot of hats that they play here in this realm.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, we don't know. That's like we always say when it comes to the mind. Is it the mind? Is it your brain?
It's
Is
just
it your
an
soul that's
illusion.
creating? Is it your spirit that's creating,
Yeah.
these thoughts?
It could be. I mean, you just don't know.
And, and one,
Dr. Ross talks about the collective. So
because he watched too much Star Trek.
is that what he
The
does?
Borg, yeah.
Unconscious. I can't speak collective.
Oh, I say, well, as Mom said when she came back to me, we're all part of the light. We all join the light, is what she says.
I know
Yeah,
it's
see?
funny that you mentioned that. That's another thing somebody said. The people that remember the light,
Mm-hmm.
when at the end of the tunnel, they come back as somebody else. That's some of the stories that they got also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go into the light, you may come back somebody else.
Well, some people say there have been accounts where people say that I wasn't ready, or I'm not supposed to. I
She
wasn't.
wasn't ready.
They
I
s-
wish you knew that reference.
yeah, I don't know the reference. It sounded funny. But yeah,
Kev,
they where people say I wasn't ready yet, or my soul left my body too quickly. I told you I read the Medium's book, Kim Russo, and she
yeah,
was talking about
you
that.
watch a million of her episodes on different TV shows.
Yes, and I read her book, and it was a good book. And she talks about past life regression, and she talks about who she was. She even found out who her husband was. She learned how to do how do you say it?
Hypnotize.
What's it?
Yeah,
Hypnosis.
Hypnosis, and she
hippopotamus.
she found out a lot about her husband and why he has certain fears and things like that. And she helped him. She helped her husband. Listen, my takeaway from it all, if
It's an extraordinary,
we can't speak
fascinating
today.
topic because there's too many interruptions today. I
I
think
bet-
that
is that
it's-
what it
yeah,
is?
it was. It got us offline. It's late, and we're bouncing around, but I mean, we got out what we wanted to say.
Well, wait. You gave a quote. Let me give a quote.
Okay,
Wrap it up. He's giving me the wrap it up sign. Okay. There's a Danish philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard. I'm probably said that wrong.
probably.
He once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." I don't know the meaning of that quote, but
Time travel.
hey,
Could that be it? Time travel.
yeah, maybe. I guess.
I mean, but all in all, like I always say, we can just continue to talk about just different parts of this subject, like always. But
Yeah.
on the next episode, we're going to go into consciousness. So this will be part 3 of our
What part of
three-part series.
consciousness?
We're just
Your
gonna-
subconsciousness.
Isn't that part of it? We're just going to wrap the 3-part series up with the consciousness.
Okay.
Try to figure out, because nobody knows. I mean, we can only speculate, and everybody's just speculating.
Sure.
I mean, I don't care how much scientific data that you have, you don't really know.
Yeah.
We don't really know. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
So, what say you? Any other final words? Final thoughts?
Because
Yes.
I'm sure you have a lot.
Oh,
Maybe we need to
yes.
do a part 4.
A part
Yeah,
4.
yeah.
No, we can't tell stories, but we have to.
We can tell
Stick-
stories if we want. But go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll
What's
leave
your
it-
takeaway?
I'll leave it the recording on. You could tell stories.
Okay. What's your takeaway?
On what, which topic?
Just
huh?
in general.
Well, just in, not
to
the
close out.
yeah, to close it out. So
To close it out, I honestly believe, like, and I haven't watched and read all the things that you all have, but I truly believe that our essence is all part of the light, and that we are basically like a floating consciousness, and choose and pick our paths and what we want to try in each life as we come back.
I agree.
yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, can I prove it? No. It's just
Yeah.
what I feel in my heart.
because I've heard the mind could be creating our body,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much the same thing.
Right.
But hey, I don't want to pick this life. I want to be like Will Smith or somebody like that. Can I choose that?
But your past life you may have.
But we're the same age. How could I be him if we're the exact same age?
I don't listen.
We're like a month apart. in
Meaning
age.
someone like him. I didn't know you meant specifically.
No,
him.
I want to be.
You don't
Will
want to be
Smith.
an entanglement, sir.
No, you know what? You know who I want to be? Lenny Kravitz.
No, you don't.
Yes,
want
I
to be
do.
Lenny Kravitz.
Yes, I do. There's a lot of reasons why I would want
Why?
to be Lenny Kravitz.
Because he has I don't know, tattoos. I don't. He plays the guitar.
There you go. There you go. Tattoos. That's it. He's got nice tattoos.
Just get tattoos.
Yeah, let's say, well, he's pretty good on the guitar too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
a lot of things.
yeah.
Oh,
wait,
because
wait a
he
minute.
is
Lot of
Lisa
things.
Bonet's baby's daddy.
Right,
No,
you
not-
just took that out of my. We were
Same
right,
minds,
right,
great
exactly. I was going
It's
there.
along the lines of that. But to wrap the show up, thank you guys for listening. If you're still listening,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Sorry for rambling.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on today.
Yes.
Now, see, you're supposed to come on and tell your ghost stories.
Yes, I will. I think you let me know. Well, when we pick a date, and I'll
It
come.
could be any time because this recorder's always here.
Yeah, we have to put it on a calendar and schedule it to make sure that I actually come, because
Yeah.
just saying show up is just not working.
Yeah. It has to be by happenstance, like today.
If the dog shut up, we can do it now.
Yeah. Sorry
but-
to hear her.
Now, if you guys have a story to tell, go ahead and tell it.
Please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Right? Did I miss something?
I don't know, you're the social media person. I'm not.
Yeah, that's it. That's
But
it.
anyway, if you guys have a story to tell, and if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, you can always reach me at jwcarterfilmworks@gmail.com or join my Facebook group, Mysteries and Belief
What if they wanna
Podcast at
reach
John
me?
Carter. If they want to reach you, just post it on that, and then I will tell you. How about that?
No, that's okay. They can message you. I'm good. I just wanted to see.
Okay. So until next time,
Thank you for coming to see. Love you.
peace.